at 7:30. Okay, welcome to the City of Bloomfield Hills City Commission meeting for December 12th. Let's begin by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have any comments or questions?
I have one question. Jamie, it's for you. You have on here under the water, the second bullet was water main on Eastways. Reviewing relocation for road commission culvert replacement project?
Yes.
We talked about this and I just forgot.
No, this is a little bit newer. So the road
Okay.
commission approached the city and they are going to replace 2 culverts on Eastways, which is their road, and a water main. The city's water main happens to be right in the way. So they've asked us to scope and review, the city asked us to scope and review what those might cost and the best way to provide that service. And we're looking for, there's a lot of little nuances to that. And so we're looking into that to bring back before the city commission for approval to actually go and do those relocations. It's a road commission road, and if they tell us to get out of the way, we have to get out of the way.
Are these nuances going to cost us money?
Yep. And
yeah, this is
You're not reimburse us?
no. So what it is there's culverts underneath Eastways that are failing. So when cars drive over it, they potentially could fail. But unfortunately, there's water mains that are right next to the culverts. So in order for them to tear these out, we have to move the water mains.
or lower.
Lower them or move them, and
Yeah.
essentially we have to move them. So there's a cost to that. So our fees for water and sewer would cover these costs. So water and sewer funds would cover these costs. We just don't know what that is yet. So there has to be some analysis, and that's part of yeah. So eventually, I was going to bring this to the commission and talk to you about it. I'm not prepared to. We had a meeting about it, initial meeting about it, but there has to be more analysis by HRC. I always ask, what is something like this going to cost? And Leo Michael says, I don't know, maybe 50,000. I'm not sure, but we don't know until we have some more information on this. We have to find out what type of water mains in the ground, because we've done a lot of water main improvements. I'm not sure if this is a cement water main or if it's a steel water main, and there's
2 of them. There's one on each side of the road, so we might be able to consolidate them, save some money.
we might have to,
That's what we're trying to evaluate, but ultimately, it's the city's responsibility to move. So hopefully by January, we'll have that information for you.
but ultimately it'd be water and sewer fund.
It's not that big of a road. Eastways?
Yeah, it's like a 66-foot right of way, I think, or something like that. 86-foot right of way.
Mm-hmm.
These water mains are right. One of the culverts would be through the center of the new culvert, and the other one would be like right below, like right below it. So it might just be a matter of directionally drilling just deeper and connecting on both ends. That might be nearsighted if it's AC pipe or if it's this, you know what I mean? So we're trying to figure out what's the best thing to do while we have the people there. We'd likely use Oakland County Water Resources
Right.
as needed contractors that have already been vetted and approved, and in fact the city uses them a lot anyways. And so we're trying to figure all that out for the best cost possible, the timing for that.
Isn't one side of Eastways in the township?
So both sides of Eastways is the city to just north of Kingsley Trail.
All the way to Square Lake Road?
No, just up to Kingsley Trail. So there's Westview and Parkman are the city streets, and those are city streets for like 3 houses.
Yeah.
And then it's township, and it's north, the houses on the north side of Kingsley Trail, and then that's the township above there. And that's just one little stub road that the county doesn't have much. South Morton, Long Lake, Gordon, and then this little piece of Eastways is actually a county road. So,
Wow.
yeah. And I don't think this was ever brought up. I think we're all scrambling to catch up with the road commission, who's moving week or two. I mean, this is weeks old.
I think we had a meeting about it, last Monday, so, yeah. So, yeah, the question to the commission will eventually be, we'd like to spend this money out of water and sewer fund, and most likely, we probably wanna use the contractors that have already been vetted, because when you bid these things out, it just adds a lot of costs that may not be necessary, in my opinion, but it's up to you guys.
Yeah, for a small maintenance project, it would add a lot of cost.
Yeah, it could add $20,000 to it or something, so.
Do we have a timing when we'll know this?
So I hope to bring back the cost estimates and things in January, or an update. We may not be prepared to act on it in January because of the holidays and everything else, but at least maybe an estimate of cost and some plans, some details for it. And then I think the road commission wants to do this work over the summer, so we would move pretty quickly to get the work done. I'll have more information for you in January. We just started a week ago.
Okay, I was thinking, maybe, did I miss this one?
No.
Okay, good to know.
Can we do all this work in if it's frozen?
So likely we plan on doing the work in March and April, maybe a little bit later, or time it with their project, to see what happens, but, some of it can be done, but we gotta coordinate with them, we gotta make sure the timing is good, depending on what contractor they're using, it might be advantageous to use road commission's contractor, it's an underground, and so, trying to save the city a great deal of money, that's something that we're working on.
The second question, same thing for you, Jamie, is the Chesterfield culvert, and we have you said you're working through the design for rehabilitation option for early 2024 bidding, so we don't have a final cost on that either, because we haven't got on to bid.
We've only had the estimates, and that is, the estimates are still holding. We got an Eagle permit to do the work, now we're finalizing the contract documents to put out in the first of the year, and then we'll have a final cost on that. Not by the January meeting, probably by, I'll have to check with the, February, March at the latest. We cannot do that work until the summer, when the flows are the lowest, because we don't wanna pay for a whole bunch of bypass pumping and stuff like that. Flows are high. We're gonna shut one of these culverts down, we're gonna rehab the other one, and back and forth. We gotta be real careful with spring rains, and any kind of, costs associated with managing those flows. So I think this would be, get it out, get it on the books, and give them the rest of the year to do the work, bring the pricing as cheap as possible.
Okay. That's all I had in there.
I just had a couple of quick questions, probably for Sandra. Just was wondering, there's a $71,000 approximately for concrete replacement. Was that just the slab out?
Behind public safety.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
What was that for, I'm sorry?
It was the concrete replacement behind public safety. It was part of the capital.
Oh, okay, I saw that too, I'm sorry, yep.
And then there's another expense that's described as clean and paint fire for $68,520. What is that?
Fire hydrant?
That's on
Fire
page 9.
Fire hydrants.
Oh, the fire hydrants.
That's done.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Okay, sorry. And then I just wanted to say thanks to Chief Gormley for the report. I think that gets glossed over sometimes in the consent agenda, so I just wanted to thank you for that, and also congratulations to the two PSOs. Is it Keen or Ken? Is the last name PSO Ken and PSO May?
Yes.
Is it Ken or Keen? I don't.
Keen.
Okay, PSO Keen. So congrats to them. They graduated, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The two new graduates were Churchill and
Oh, these were just attending.
they were attending.
Got you.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
So the two that graduated were who?
Churchill and Jada.
Okay.
So they go through 6 months on driving with somebody now, right? Before they're actually sworn in?
Yep, right about 14 weeks. They'll be sworn in, our officers, and they're sworn in immediately as police officers, but they will work with a FTO or a partner, a training officer,
Mhm.
for roughly the next 14 weeks.
Okay,
Great.
good.
Then just a question about the invasions, home invasions.
Yes.
Do we have a number of, like, in the last 2 months or whatever the period is, maybe last 3 months, how many total?
We've had 8 since February, and there's been about 60 in Oakland County, total. And we, had success with 2 of those, that, there's been arrest on.
Okay.
And the other ones are, still open cases.
Okay.
We have 8 in our city.
Yes.
I think the information that you're putting out, I know is good. Also, what Sheriff Bouchard is doing is also good.
Yes.
Because people are actually, I think, more vigilant now, and
They are absolutely more vigilant. We probably get 4 or 5 calls a day of suspicious vehicles that we follow up with, or persons, or situations. People are on edge, and noticeably so. There's been a lot of home invasions in our city as well as surrounding communities, Bloomfield Township, Birmingham, Troy. And we've worked hard with the Sheriff Department and us to educate the community. I've taken a lot of calls and people calling and asking what they can do, and spent a lot of time talking to them, following up on calls.
Do they all seem to be of the same type of home invasions, the
Yes.
same?
Yes, out of those 8, we believe they're all related to the same group, not the same individuals in each case, but the same group. And actually, not just our 8, but 50 or 60 within Oakland County, we believe are all in the same group. I just talked to Cincinnati, Ohio today, and they have probably another 50 there from the same group. So,
Yeah, Grosse Point's been hit pretty hard.
Grosse Point, exactly, and that is the same group that is targeting us.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, they're targeting the same type homes in Oakland County, similar to our homes, where there are large homes, large lots. Oakland Township, Bloomfield Township, Birmingham, Troy. The nice areas, same with Cincinnati, Ohio, they're targeting their nice homes in the nice areas. We just happen to fall in the heart of that demographic.
I think we need to continue the communication out as much as we can. Also on, are we using that on our Facebook page?
We've been collectively we joined the task force with the county.
Yeah, I saw you, a whole bunch of
pushing
you.
our messages out the entire, there's 55 people in that task force, and we're pushing our messages all through the county, one message, one voice.
So it's just going through the county through Bouchard's site?
Yes, yes.
Okay, because that's what I see mostly. I just think it's a good idea to continue to let people know. I know I get a lot of phone calls. People will say to me, I don't know, I'm always like, call the police. Why are you calling me? But I think it's good to let people be aware of it.
Yep, I have a meeting with the Homeowners Association on Thursday just about this, to tell them some of the things they can do to help protect themselves, and some good advice just to be aware.
Oh, that's great. Okay, good, thank you.
Have we actually caught some in our city, some of the perpetrators?
We have charged, and we're successfully charged. We didn't catch them while they're in our city, but we did identify who they were, and they have been charged.
I see, thank you.
Are they underage? I heard some.
There is some underage people that they utilize in this group, and that's usually for body size. They look for very small bodies.
Getting through windows and
Exactly.
things like
They
that.
like to go through the very small windows that are most likely non-alarmed.
Mm-hmm.
And they do a lot of surveillance, and they know exactly what windows go into, where in the house, and they like to go through little tiny windows. They don't open them, they just break the glass.
Have we found that any of the ones in our city have had cameras installed? I'd heard that sometimes they install cameras in the trees surrounding your home so that they can see when you're coming and going.
We have not seen that, but we do believe they definitely do surveillance.
How do they do it?
What we've seen here is mostly just people watching.
People just walking around watching.
Watching. They have different techniques that they use, but yeah, they're just using people here. We have not found any cameras.
That's good.
Yeah, my friend, they use a ladder, second floor, sledgehammer to the lead window, second floor and just wiped them out. And they were home.
They were home?
Well, they'd gone out 6 to 8, and that's when it happened. So I think they were leaving as they were just.
The targeted time is really just after dark, that 5 midnight. And even with the time change, that targeted time changed with time.
Does
Not just
weather,
in our city.
does weather play into this? I mean, I'm thinking it's colder, people, maybe that's better, maybe that's worse.
It hasn't really, we haven't really noticed a difference with weather. Yet in all weather.
Because the Grosse Pointe police told my friend that they are using young kids, and they're almost like, it's almost like child slavery, so it's not like they have a choice if it's cold.
We have to be vigilant and remember to tell people just to continue, right?
Absolutely, and that's what we continue to tell them, things, good, just practices, and then if they see anything, to report it to us. And they definitely are, our reports of suspicious people and vehicles have gone up tremendously. We quite often have 4 or 5 in a day.
I try to remind people as I'm in our neighborhood that please, you're not bothering the police. You know, you're just
It's
sending them out there and they're double checking something.
it's helpful. You're an extension of us, and you know, we can only be so many places at one time. There's a lot of streets in the city, so it's very helpful.
That's good. Okay.
I had one other question. This gas report that we get every month, I was just gonna ask, is this administratively kind of difficult to put together, or it seems like a lot of work, and I honestly, I'm not sure that there's a great value in this, and so I'm just, if it saves you time, maybe this isn't necessary, but I want to throw that out to the rest of our commissioners here to see if there's any.
Yeah, I
any
wish there
need
was
to-
a less egregious, less difficult way to, I don't know, have.
There's a report that I pulled directly from Exxon's website, but it's not in a friendly looking format. So the time consuming part is just putting it in, better format so that it's easily understood.
Right.
So.
I mean, if you have any issues, just let us know.
It's just, I actually know the history on this. There was we did an audit, there was no checks and balances to the gas card that was being used through the city. So we have a gas card that's our policy.
I disagree. We have checks and balances. We have a finance director and me that monitors us.
But you have a gas card.
I do.
Yeah, so
I
it was brought up during an audit.
I do review it every single time it gets paid. I could maybe submit just the one page that shows by department. It's included in the packet, and see how that goes. Instead of going by every single purchase, it's a summary.
Yeah, I mean, I would be fine with that. I mean, I understand your concerns, but I also don't, I mean, these kinds of things get implemented and then they're there forever unless we notice and try to remove it if it's not necessary. But if we're in agreement, maybe we can just consolidate it, make it a little easier for you. I don't know if we need to vote on that, but I don't know how this came to be. I think it was just a request, right?
Yeah.
It was never something that was voted on, so. Why don't for next month, submit something as a proposal?
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
with keeping it efficient for yourself in mind, and we'll go from there and see if that's adequate. Okay.
So if I understand that correctly, we're going to have just the summary page, not the backup? Is that the idea?
Well, I think the backup will always be there if requested, but just as far as what
Just the
she has to
summary.
put together for the meetings,
Just the first page.
I think so, right? Just the summary?
That, I could just submit that if that's sufficient for you.
Makes sense.
Okay. I think the key is really looking for trends, and honestly, if we're not looking at it, then there's really no point in you providing it. So we we should make a point, if we're gonna get this report, that we should actually look at it and,
Or if you'd like to propose a different way to present it that would simplify it for you, and still,
I mean, if you want the detail, this is really the best solution that I came up with. I do review by looking at where the purchases are made, by location, and then the dates by each department. I also can see the names of whose card was used, so I'll look at that and just make sure it makes sense and there's no excessive days in a row or in the same day purchases or, out of state or something like that. So if you want me to just review all that and then provide that front page, we can do that. And then if you have questions or if you want more detail, I can bring it either to the following meeting or, submit it via email.
yeah, I think that works. Okay. And then I just had one more quick one. The total revenues percent of budget was 89% versus expenditures were 48%. Is that a typical lopsidedness for this time of year? Because
Absolutely. Our taxes, we only collect on our summer tax bill for operating in library, so we've collected majority of our tax revenue.
Okay.
So,
Yep. All right. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, now moving on to recognition of citizens in the audience. Don't think we have anybody tonight. So we'll go on to the next item. Commission will consider the presentation of the audited financial statements for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023.
Good evening. Is it okay if I stand here? It's my pleasure to be here this evening. My name is Raina Emmes. I'm a partner with PSLZ to present to you the annual audited financial statements of the City of Bloomfield Hills. And I also like to welcome our new Commissioner Fisher. I did bring some charts this evening, and I do have a few highlights. Let's see. Okay. So starting with governmental fund revenues, this is a summary of your major sources of revenue. Obviously, property taxes are the blue segments. But also then federal and state sources, charges for services, fines and forfeitures, and interest income. This year, in fiscal year 23, there was an increase significantly for your charges for services, and that includes the building permits and licenses. You saw a significant increase there in the general fund. Specifically, you had a major commercial building that pulled a permit, and several single-family homes, and some residential improvements. So that really, significant, meaning that was about $800,000 increase in building permit revenues this year. Otherwise very consistent. Of course, the property tax revenue, your millage rate has been very consistent. It's all taxable value.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Of course.
That actually, you hit on the very thing I wanted to ask.
Sure.
In note 1, you highlight that the construction code fees that we collect,
Yes.
we're accruing more, so we have a profit actually in that section of $600,000.
This was an extraordinary year, yes.
Right. So I'm curious. I know the idea is to cover your expenses, but at some point, if you've recovered too much, at some point, do you adjust your fee? Or what's appropriate?
So the state treasury actually it's part of the municipal compliance, is that we keep track of your permit fees that you're bringing in revenue versus the actual expenditures that you're paying for the inspectors and that type of thing. And it's done on a year-by-year basis, and it's cumulative. So this started going back from like the year 2000 and forward. It's been cumulative. there is a footnote in there showing what our beginning and cumulative plus and minus the current year activity. So being of a cyclical nature, for example, this being an extraordinary year as far as more revenue, other years, I mean, the city's pretty developed. Of course you always have activity, but you're not a large farm country that has significant growth in the future. Your development is really limited. So some years you're going to have more revenue, and some years you still need to employ like the building official and you still have costs, even if no one built anything and you didn't pull any permits. So because of that, there is accounting keeping track of that, and it's in the footnotes. There's a table.
But that's not necessarily true with us. We don't have a full-time building inspector. We pay as we go.
Right, but all those like direct costs plus some of the indirect costs.
But we don't have cost if nobody builds. We don't.
So you wouldn't have an inspector going out there?
No. If there's no building, then we have. That's what Dave set up.
Well, I can give you a little history, Commissioner Fisher. So this might be helpful. Probably about 3 years ago, we noticed that we had about between $60,000 and $80,000 in the building fund, and the reason being is because the way we were charging fees was done on a square foot basis, and it wasn't done on a cost of construction. So saw this bus coming and brought it to the attention of the commission and said that I want to do some analysis to find out if our fees are appropriate, because our fees were, well, as a comparison, most communities around us were charging on a cost for construction. And so I did some analysis on how that would help us. And so we put some money in the bank, so to speak. The next year, I think we were about $140,000. And then I started talking to Sandra. Sandra and I talked, well, how much money should we have? Because there's a few different funds in the city. They have to think about water and sewer. How much money do you need to fix water and sewer funds? How much money do you need in the building fund to make sure that we pay our bills? And we allocate portions of that building fund to a lot of different salaries, including mine, because we all work for the building department in a sense. And we pay for utilities, and we pay for different things, and we pay for sometimes computer programs. So we did some analysis and actually even talked to our city attorney to find out what he felt, looking at other communities, on how we should manage this money. So we thought that for the building department, somewhere around the $500,000 mark would be a good to have in the fund, just in case we may need it. If we have a downturn in the economy and we still have to pay some things in the building department, we're always going to have a building official around in most cases, unless it all shuts down. And that's really not going to happen. We're always going to have people looking for permits and doing things. So I agree with you, the $600,000 is kind of out of character. But it's because we had a very large project on Woodward, and that was the cause of that. That's not going to happen, and it was for one commercial building. So when we look at, we did some analysis on the amount of permits that we did this year with new homes and additions and things of that nature. We try to look at that, and then throw in maybe a commercial building or two, and try to understand where we're going to be at. So we're not in a position that we only have $60,000 in the bank, but yet we have to pay for a building official, we have to pay utilities, we have to pay for different things. Because what will happen, and most communities do this, they take money out of the general fund. And we know that general fund, having those extra monies, is precious to the commission, because we don't want to be in a position where we can't pay. We're taking money from things that we can use as a possible potential emergency in the future. So really that's kind of the history behind it. The history is that we've changed the fees, and we think we're in the right spot. As a matter of fact, I think we have a multiplier of 7. Most communities are a multiplier of 10 or 12. And matter of fact, I think even when we did that, Mayor Baxter had mentioned, is 7 good enough? And I think at the time I said, yeah, I think so, but let's see. But since that time, we had this one commercial building that's really they pay a lot of money, and so that's good for us, but that's not gonna happen every year. I think we're in the right place, but if we're not, and we're noticing that we're taking too much money in, we'll come back to the commission and say, hey, I think we're charging too much in fees and we should reduce those fees. And so that's the sort of thing we try to keep an eye on.
What's an appropriate number, just to get an idea? 200? 300?
I think 500. I think having, in my opinion, anywhere between 300 and 500, and Sandra's more towards the 500, because you can quickly. So our expenses on a yearly basis are about $450,000. So you can quickly, if we have a downturn in the economy, we're not getting a lot of permit fees in, but yet we have all these expenses we can chew through that pretty quickly. So in my opinion, 300 to 500,000. Sandra's more the 500,000. Am I right, Sandra? Because we talk about this stuff all the time. But
Is there a
maybe that
standard?
helps, you know. Hopefully that helps.
Is there a standard in the state, or?
Actually, the important thing is that they did that exercise as far as running the numbers, because it really does vary from community to community. Like you said, some have full-time employees that are dedicated to that. Some are contract employees. So they're paying as inspections are happening. So they, if they've run the numbers, that's kind of. I mean, that was a pretty comprehensive explanation for your fees, and that's really, should anything go. I mean, legally, that, and I'm not the attorney here, but legally, that's what they look for as far as did we go through the exercise? Do you have numbers that back up what you're charging? And the answer isn't what is everybody around us charging. The answer is, did you do the math and figure out what your community needs and what you're charging? Is it appropriate?
Thank you.
I agree with Commissioner Fisher here that, I mean, we need to watch that balance, because if we start edging up on that, what good is it just to sit there and keep building a fund?
I can tell you, Commissioner McCarthy, I am absolutely confident in what we've done and what we are doing. I'm absolutely 100% confident. We are in the right spot. And
I didn't say you weren't doing it right. I just said we need to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that if it keeps continuing to grow, that we're knowing we're using those funds appropriately. I don't want to get to the point where, lucky Brad, he's going to build a brand new house in the city when we just reduced our, you know what I mean? I just think it has to be. I mean, I think we just need to make sure we're just.
We look at it annually, so we look at it annually, or even more than that. I think we probably look at it all the time. So we would absolutely reduce it if we felt that was appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it is disclosed.
Recommended anyway, and that's up to you guys.
Page 25, for future reference, page 25, that is the disclosure, and it is annually required by the state, so it will appear every year.
Okay.
Are our rates the same as our neighbors?
Less. So our
Less
rates.
than Birmingham and less than
Yes, I think
Bloomfield?
Birmingham is. I mean, so what I found, I'm just talking from memory from doing this maybe several years ago now, maybe 3 years ago. But the majority were like a 10 to 12, and some have gone up from there, multiplier. And Birmingham was the higher one, 12 to 15. What's that?
17.
They're 17 now.
17, wow.
And we're 7. So
Wow.
we are cognizant of making sure that the residents of what we believe are, we're not charging too much. But at the same time, we don't want you folks to have to dip into the general fund for anything.
And do you find these bigger homes are gonna put more pressure and cause more expense for water and sewer and infrastructure in general?
Well, if you're asking the question if we have the appropriate infrastructure for the homes, I think we do from a water main perspective. I think our improvements that we've made for water is appropriate. And we make sure that they tap with the right size. We don't allow them to tap with something too small, and they pay water. Everybody in the city pays water and sewer. That's the decision that the commission made maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. That we don't have separate meters for sprinklers for irrigation. So I think that because of those decisions that we're appropriately funded to maintain our systems.
Any other questions on revenues?
Thank you.
Moving on, governmental fund expenditures. The city is very consistent with your operating expenditures. It's typically your capital expenditures that vary, and those are planned projects. The general fund really, it pretty much is the source that funds most things in the city. It is, so most things go through the general fund, especially capital expenditures. You do budget for it in the capital improvement. This year specifically on the capital were roads. It was just under $1 million in road projects that the city spent, and there was a street sweeper that they purchased. That's about a $350,000 item. So both pretty large items. So operating the important thing is operating expenditures are very consistent. You do a nice job here of monitoring from month to month your budget to actual and your actual operating expenditures to keep them consistent. They're not all over the place, and that's how you get a desired result at the end of the year. We're keeping it within your budget and being able to spend on actual capital projects. The general fund balance. So the blue lines are the annual expenditures of the city. So again, pretty consistent except for when we have large projects. And the orange color is the unassigned fund balance. So you can see what you have in the fund balance not dedicated for something else as compared to the expenditures. So very consistent with what we like to see. Again, we had a jump this year due to the permit revenues. I guess I will. You did add $451,000 to the general fund balance this year, and came in under budget $104,000 on the expenditures. The pension plan is again some historical information here. Looking at the last 2 years, in fiscal year 22, you were at 82% funded. This year, looks like we dropped to about 67%. That really is, so the city is doing everything appropriately. You're making all your contributions that you're required to make for what the actuaries require you to do. What happened in the current fiscal year is that your pension trust assets were valued as of December 31st, 2022, which happened to be not a great day in the stock market. So you actually are showing a net investment loss this year in fiscal year 23 of $3.9 million. So that's significant. But we did recoup a lot of that early in January to June of 23, and currently you're in much better shape as far as, and hopefully we end the year December 31st, 23 with a better stock market situation, so that next year it'll look better. But so you didn't sell the investments, so it's unrealized. But this is how that was how it was valued on December 31st this year. So nothing to be concerned about as far as it's not a trend, but it does. The stock market does play, have an impact on the valuations.
But don't we have a formula we have to follow with the state?
Yes.
To be funded?
Yes.
Well, we're not there. Are they going from this number?
Yes, so they want you at a minimum of 60% funded.
Right. 60%?
Yes.
Funded?
Yes.
If we dip 6%, we got to put a lot of money in our pension fund.
Correct, but if you look at your trend the years before that, you weren't even close to that. But
that's what concerns me.
Right, if you had 2 years in a row like this year, then we'd be having a different situation.
I just don't know how comfortable I am waiting for another year to see where we're going to be, and then we have to dump a bunch of money in, because that's $3.9 million underfunded.
So what you can do is take this information in budget talks. When we have our budget conversations, you can make a decision where put the funds that we're in the black this year and where the fund balance is, and make decisions if you want to put some of those funds towards either OPEB or pension liability.
Correct, that would be a great time to have that discussion is during budget time. If you decide that you need to make it a priority, you'll have better numbers also, getting into February, March when you're working on the budget. You can kind of see where, and you'll know what the stock market did on December 31st, 23 as well. So you can pretty much infer the numbers at that point. And again, it's whether, it's a priority for the commission. You can put an extra lump sum contribution into the budget. You can also wait, you could put it into the budget even for this fiscal year 24 and decide to make it late in the year, like in June, before you end the fiscal year, if that's something you would, that becomes a priority.
Well, it is a priority. It's always been a priority, as you can see. We've done very well, and we've prided ourselves on putting money into this pension plan. Sandra, do we start in February with budget or March? When do we start?
This coming year, we'll have our first meeting, is what I'm gonna propose.
When will we have December 31st results? In January?
MERS won't have our actuary until June. They present it in June each year. But we'll all have an idea of, in general, how the stock market has done. If that's something you want me to bring back to the commission in January.
I'm just going to say that I'm very concerned by that number. And I saw it last night, and I was like, we have never, ever been in this situation. So you're telling me December 31st of 2022 was the worst December in the last 4 years?
Well, yeah. So on page 42, there's a historical chart of both your liabilities and the pension assets. So you can see that
I saw that, yeah.
Okay. Looking at your net investment income or loss, it's significant. For example, in the year before, you had $4.3 million in net investment income in that pension trust, and we dropped to 3.9 loss. That's a pretty big swing.
It's a huge swing.
Yeah. But looking historically, it hasn't been that bad. But that's
right.
Not necessarily a prediction of what's to come.
I just think, Sandra, this is really something we need to stay on top of. That's a huge swing. We've never been in that big of a loss before. I'm just very concerned about this.
Is there no way to get the numbers in January to understand where we are so we can budget for it if we need to?
I certainly can reach out to MERS, absolutely.
You'll know the value of your assets
Okay, so
in January, February.
Yeah. So we get quarterly reports. So typically I don't get the December until mid-February timeframe.
Mm.
So
Maybe if it's possible to reach out and get those numbers, because there's definitely some concern around it. Where and if it's bounced back, then I think that will alleviate a lot of the concern.
absolutely.
But again, like you said, something to keep your eye on from year to year, because you could see just by the value of the stock market on a specific day how much it can impact the pension plan.
Yeah, it's a big one, but 3.9 million is just a lot. That's all. We got a lot of money to come up with.
Other post-employment benefits, our acronym OPEB for the retiree health care. Similar, this is valued as of June 30th each year, not December 31st. So you're 52% funded this year as opposed to 40% the year before. Assets are up. You did have, let's see, the total liability is 5.13 million. You're on that. Let's see what I'm sure you had a net investment gain in the OPEB plan.
Did we contribute this year to that, Sandra?
Yes.
We did, didn't we? That's why.
Mm-hmm.
What?
We contributed 500 initially, and then going back memory, I apologize. I think it was another
Yeah, so part of this is not, this is us contributing to, that's my point. We have
Yes.
contributed to both of these funds quite regularly in good sums of money in order to keep us in a very good standings and not get below and put yourself in a situation where if you have a down year, we dip that low. So we make big contributions to this as we have the money going forward. And so I remember us making those two for this one. That's why I'm so concerned over the other
The
side.
pension. Well, again, at budget time, that's, so you want to focus on the pension.
Did we contribute to the pension?
No, so we've been contributing, what we did with the pension is bond in 2014, and then you saw 98%, and then all of a sudden it went down because of the stock market. But we've been contributing to the OPEB, so, OPEB
That was to
has
bring
been-
it up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's
that's been
why.
working. But yeah, that's something you can decide. You can decide if you wanna contribute towards pension, or, we actually talked about that.
We're required to contribute, so we do contribute every year
Right.
based on what the requirement is, but above and beyond.
Yeah. The extra, but the extra contribution really has only been to OPEB,
Okay.
and not the pension.
So it's 60% for the pension. What is it for OPEB that we can't?
Oh, 40%.
40%?
Well, it's 52% now.
Yeah, but it's
Right.
40
Oh,
for
the
the state.
requirement,
for the
yes, state
for the
requirement.
state. Okay. Well, that's why we contributed so heavily, is because we were just right at 40 and we wanted to have that.
Yeah, there's the, can you explain it there's two tests though? Do you understand the two
yes.
tests? Can you explain the two tests for both pension and OPEB?
Sure, so the 40% and the 60% are the straight funding of your assets versus your liabilities. But then the state has a second test. So if you are below 40 or 60% respectively, it triggers a comprehensive action plan by the state. They'll ask you, what are you going to do about this? How are you going to get yourself up, above this? But the second test is 12% of your total governmental revenues. So that does impact, that's your general fund.
But isn't it true though, you have to have one or the other test, not both, before
Correct,
it triggers?
correct.
So.
Correct. So you could be
I just
below
don't want-
40%.
I don't want the commission to be so concerned that if we're at 59% for the pension, there's also a secondary test, and that secondary test is just as important. And if we have only that secondary test, that will not trigger anything. So, I want to make sure that's clear.
Yes, so the governmental revenues includes general fund, the road funds, even the road construction fund, all considered part of your governmental revenue sources. So, like I said, even if you were under 60% in the pension, it wouldn't trigger if you met the 12% of your governmental revenues test.
We're probably about 6%, I think, right? Our expenditures are only about 6% of that, or something like that, or the.
Oh, it's our revenue.
Right,
So
yeah.
it's, we're well.
Yeah, I think
we're
you're-
well below it's not over the threshold, is my point. So those two tests, I just want to make sure everybody knows that.
No, good point on that. The blue lines are your assets. You could see those progressively going up, and also on page 45, there's a chart which shows all the excess contributions you've been making on the OPEB plan. And there's a similar chart two pages before that, and that's your pension plan. So page 43 is the pension, and you'll see you've contributed exactly what you were supposed to contribute, but not more. There's no extra contributions on the pension, but there is on page 45 on the OPEB plans. So those are 10-year histories on what's been happening with those plans. And to be clear, you are in compliance. You've contributed everything you were supposed to contribute statutorily. You're within the percentages that they like, but I understand your concern. That's again, if you had a second year like that, like this year, these numbers would skew significantly.
Well, yeah, and we can't wait till we find out from whoever comes. We have to find out ahead of time and plan, because the only reason we did not contribute above to the pension one was because we were at 86%. And so we knew that one, and we wanted to make sure we were above the OPEB one, and that's why we contributed so heavily to the OPEB, is to get us up and above. We've never been in this situation. I think we just need to really watch it. And when we get the numbers in, we need to make sure we know about them.
Just in ending, no new debt for the city this year. You did pay down the annual requirements. You have 2 years left on your 2010 general obligation bond and your 2014 pension bond. And the only thing remaining after that is your 2021 general obligation pension bond. So that's nice to see that a couple of those issues will be going away shortly. You've probably even made one of those 2-year payments already in the current fiscal year, so you're almost there on that. So with that, I'm also happy to address any issues that the commission may have on anything specific.
Nothing specific, but is it customary that we get the year-end in December, with the year-end being in June? It just strikes me as being
It is not for the city. It is not customary, and we've already discussed that as far as it'll be October. No.
November is usually when it's presented.
Got it.
This year everything did get pushed back a little bit because we did change auditors late in the audit process. Kind of stepped up and did a great job getting it done for us.
I'd be very happy to be here earlier than December next year. The city did also, most importantly, the city did receive the highest level of audit opinion possible, which is an unmodified opinion. So no exceptions, disclaimers, nothing bad to report this evening. We did go over the report in depth with Mayor, and if anyone has any trouble sleeping, I suggest you keep this on your nightstand, because this will take care of that.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
And certainly thank you to the city staff. Everyone has been very accommodating and very appreciative. Made for a very efficient and very pleasant environment to audit in. And so thank you. I appreciate your courtesy they extended to me, and everyone's hard work. So it's team effort to get it done.
Okay. Moving on to considering the local government critical infrastructure grant. Jamie.
Jamie, is it up here? Is that on the desktop? Good evening, everyone. Jamie Burton with Hubble, Roth & Clark. Nice to welcome new commissioners and old friends. I'm here tonight to talk about the Oakland County Government Critical Infrastructure Grant. If you recall, we brought this before the commission to approve a resolution to kind of accept the project moving forward, but the commissioners asked a lot of very great questions. We had some unknown issues to resolve, mainly with the number of service lines and other things. We agreed to come back and see you with all pieces of information when we had better budgets, better information, and seek approvals for this. So a little bit of background. Oakland County, I believe through ARPA and the other previous stimulus packages, received money, and then decided to sub-grant out to local units of government funding to deal with critical infrastructure. And the maximum you could receive was $200,000. It's a 50-50 match. So the city would put in $100,000. All of this is water and sewer, and all of this is included in the water and sewer rate budgets and the budgeting that we approved for the last year's rate cycle. So this has all been included in that. More importantly, it's paying for 50% of the money that you would use to complete projects that are necessary and required of the city. Okay, So it seems to make sense. But again, we wanted to, a couple of issues which I'm going to talk about a little bit closer. But in summary, I'll get into it, but there was a lot of homes that we thought initially had to be tested for lead service lines. And we thought that number was very, very high. We've been working on it since. We've got that number down. It started in hundreds, went to 292, and now it's down to 36. So I think we're doing pretty good there. To physically test them, it's a couple $1,000s per home, and I'm going to get into all of that. So here's kind of the summary. Originally we came in and the grants wanted you to do more than just lead service lines, so we put in $160,000 for those, and then $40,000 for televising of sewer lines. Again, work that you're going to do anyways, or through your service provider, Oakland County. But because we were able to get that down, we've got better information. We went and we've actually we talked to Dave and Sandra, and we went and we asked Oakland County if they would support this change in the application, and they have come back and they said they would support that, meaning spend a lot less money on the service verifications because we've gone from 292 down to 36. But the planning side of that, which we're going to talk about, is 48,000. The sewer, we've talked about going out there and doing all the sewer rehabilitation programs. In fact, we got money budgeted for that, adding that back in. And Oakland County has been working on a redundancy program, emergency operations plan, if you recall. We rely on the township to provide water in an emergency situation on peak flows. We've got 2 connections to Detroit, but if the main one goes down, we have a problem, and we're trying to make sure that all works out. And they were going to complete that using city funds. So again, work that you are going to do, work that is necessary to make sure your infrastructure is up, but getting 50% of it paid for. So a little bit more, I'm going to go through this in detail. I'm not going to read this, but there's two steps to the lead service line work. The first has been completed. That is to do like a desktop review, submit all this information, and summarize the materials based on every available piece of information we can. And I'm going to say, I'll say it out loud on the television for you. We do not suspect that we are going to find lead service lines within the community. Okay? Your system was built in the 70s, was built after the fact, except we got one little area that was built through either by the township or the private residents had a community well, and that's in the northeast corner. We don't have the documentation necessary to completely sign off on that and say no. That's the only area that came back, and there's a few other, they want us to check 14 other homes. So once that's submitted, we submitted that, and that's when we've been able to whittle down by January 2025, we have to physically inspect the interior of the home and the exterior out of the stop box of all these 30-some homes. And so that is part 2, and that's what we're really here to talk to you today about, using this infrastructure funds to do that, and HRC time as well. So the original plan was you had the unknown service lines 20%. We were able to get down to a smaller number, and basically we originally were at 292. We got that down to 36. 20% of 106 homes in this area comes up to 22 houses, and then homes after 2006 when HDPE. HDPE, we started allowing plastic pipe, and then we're not sure if some of those service lines was an additional 14 homes. So that's how we got down to 36. This is federal state mandate. This is as low as we could get the number down, because we just didn't feel that this was very cost effective or reasonable, but we've got it down. So how does the program work? In your packet, you have a sample letter that sends out where property owners can submit online a photograph of their basement, essentially of their meter, showing what type of materials are on either side, and kind of self-report. If not, what we've determined the best would be is they would contact the city. John Rogers would go out there. This takes about 5 minutes. You go look at the meter, you take a photograph. You're not there to do anything else. What's the material coming in off the floor? What's the material going through in the home? Once we have 36 of those, then we go back out, and we would go, and this is a picture that we've used. They use a vacuum excavator. They go either side of the stop box. It's about a 1-foot diameter hole, and they put it right back when they're done. It's very low impact, and we come in and seed it and move on. Oakland County has a series of contractors that do this. That's how we got the $2,000 per site cost estimate. So the idea is it lead from the water main to the stop box? Is it lead from the stop box to the meter? And is it lead inside the house? 3 areas of piping that we're looking to do. Okay, so that's the first step we'd like to do, and a little bit verification. We've got mixed results on the self-reporting in other communities. Some people see a letter and they just kind of discard it. We just have to we have to get into these homes. We have to get into 36 of these homes and report. But I think going online, letting people self-report takes 5 minutes, or having John in town available to meet pretty much at a moment's notice or any other time, I think is pretty good community outreach and resident customer service is the word I'm looking for, to try to get this done as least impactful as possible. 2 little holes in the front yard, in the right of way, cleaned up when we're done. Everybody moves on. So we'll get this thing over with once and for all. You have for the HRC portion of this work, which is to set up this whole online system, manage all of that, deal with the contractors, get everybody out there. The proposal for that is in your packets. Second stage is the sanitary sewer planning, or preliminary design. We've talked about before, and during your budgeting, you set aside a bunch of money to go out there and do repairs on your sanitary sewer system. So Oakland County does the video inspections, looks at all of them, and does 2 types of reviews, structural and maintenance. I'll talk about those in a second. And they bring them back to the city quarterly or once a year, whenever we sit down with them. And then ultimately, the city's responsible for your system, even though Oakland County maintains it. So either you authorize them to take care of it with their expense, their money, their rates, or the city says, here's the money to take care of it, or sometimes the city issues your own RFPs to deal with this work. Depends on what's the most cost effective, what's the most reasonable. Trying to figure out what, if there's a sewer or a water main for that matter under a city road that we're going to do, then the city usually takes the lead on that. But if it's just simple maintenance, simple repair, we usually let the county do that. I think Dave reported this in one of his city manager reports, but the results of this are the city's in really good shape. Okay, we'll show you the bar charts in a minute. To put definition on that, the structural review is about cracks. Things are really, the pipe is failing. Maintenance means whether it's deposits or intrusion, infiltration, or just things in the way that can be fixed by jetting or cleaning or other things. That's the difference between these 2 categories, as you'll see. But structurally, from 2004, 2003 to about 2010, maybe 11, the city went forward and did televising, and then immediately did a bunch of sewer repairs. Okay, so we lined a whole bunch of sewers in town. So your system's in good shape, and you've been keeping up with it pretty good since that time frame. So again, you're in decent shape as far as what needs to structural. The 4s and the 5s over there on the left-hand side represent the areas that you're structurally having a concern or a problem with your pipe that needs to be repaired. So that's where the planning comes in. Maintenance, again, about the same. You've got a lot of trees, right? Your sewers go down. A lot of the sewer system follows the river systems. You've got just roots and deposits and mineral things are in it. So this is a little bit less than the other one, but nothing of concern. And again, the 5s and the 4s, if they can't be done with maintenance, are added to the capital list. So in this case, 4s and 5s are the worst. So this is the map of all the known 4s and 5s at this time. We brought forward this idea in the budgeting process, and if you recall, your rate structure is able to support $800,000 of it in this current fiscal year. We have other reserves and other information. Since that time, we've gone through and started to do some of this analysis and found that the final real cost estimate of this is about 1.2. You cannot go do all this work. It may actually have to take 3 years to do fiscal years. But this is primarily done in the summer. It can be done in the winter, but if we got to dig up a road or dig up a driveway, we want to be able to put it back right of way. So you're looking at summer. So it may actually go into 3 fiscal years, but the idea would be is to spread that. You can't possibly go do all this work. Some of it is trenchless. Some of it means there will be no surface impact. We will put a liner in the pipe, but some of it we have to dig. So the next steps on this,
areas that cannot be done trenchless, we need to look at those as open excavation, work with your road program, work with other utilities in the area, and really take a hard look at those a little bit closer. Trenchless solutions. So by this, the people who videotape the system come up and say we need a spot liner. That's just a small piece of lining in a pipe. But if there's two of them in a pipe, and we're just going to be back there in a few years, we might as well just line the whole damn pipe while we're there. Same setup fee, same mold fee, same everything. So though, in others, they may have requested a full one. Maybe we know something that maybe we can get away with that. So we have to go in and look at the videotapes from every single one of these, make sure it's work. Prioritize it. Obviously, we want to coordinate with other city projects. And then ultimately work on putting together one or possible multiple, likely it's going to be multiple packages for the as-needed Oakland County contractors to bid, or the city's contractors to bid on this work. And then obviously we've got to tell the residents what's happening, how to handle it, and all that stuff, kick out the project. So again, you have a proposal for HRC's portion of that in there. The contracted work would be a contract that the city, through administration, would have to look at and approve or bring back to the city commission. So tonight, we're asking really three things. Is to confirm, reaffirm or confirm where this money will be spent and the scope of work. And then you've got the two projects, which are a combination of contracted work through Oakland County and HRC in the first one. The second one would be HRC and a contractor to be named or to be worked on as a low qualified bidder at a later date. We haven't bid those yet. So I think in keeping with the commission's request to reevaluate this item and bring back all the details, that's why we're here tonight to propose these, ask for your approval, your consideration and approval, and answer any questions you may have.
I have a question, Jamie.
Yeah.
On your map with all the 4s and 5s,
Yeah.
isn't that map a little overstated with all the air? Can it be like a very small area? But since it's a map of a street,
These are like manhole-to-manhole segments, but it could literally be a 2-foot section in the middle of a pipe that we can do trenchless. These are just kind of sections of pipe. So this looks worse than it really is. Is that your point?
Thank you.
Yeah. Some of these are a joint, are a singular joint in a pipe that needs to be repaired or fixed. Some of these are 5-8 foot sections. Some of them are the whole pipe, but it's hard to. We haven't gone through there and found the exact footage of every single one and put dots on the map. But yes, Dave, this looks worse than it is.
I'm just thinking from a disruption standpoint.
Yeah. There will be some that we'll have to dig up and we'll have a hole out there, but most of these I'm hoping we can do with a single day of impact to a resident, meaning please don't use excessive water during the day, no laundry, no something, just for the day. And we'll be in and out of there in one day. I'm hoping that's most of these, but again, we haven't gone that far yet. We'll know that first quarter next year. Any other questions, concerns?
So tonight, you're asking us to approve the 2 scopes of work for HRC that you provided, and to approve the letter that you put together to amend the original request for grant funds?
So the original letter for grant fund, the request to change the grant funds already went in, because if they were going to say no, I didn't want to come to present to you this evening. Oakland County has already approved. They've already approved this amended funding budget that you see here, the initial to revised. What we're specifically asking for is the 2 HRC proposals, the $72,000 for the water line, service line verifications. All of it. We're asking for all of this. What's not included in here, and what we're not asking for at this time, is the approval for $600,000 out of the water sewer fund to go do the improvements. We have not bid that. We do not have a contract price for that. That would be a contract that this board has to approve. So we're asking for everything on this screen. What we're not asking for is that $600,000 per year for the next 2 years, because we don't have a contractor that will come back before you to award. Essentially, you're approving the $200,000 grant, and this is the scope of work to get that done.
So, can I just summarize? Prior to this, we approved the $200,000, the 100,000 matching
Yep.
fund with the city because we thought we were gonna have 292 homes, right? We estimated.
The 160, it was $200,000 that we applied for on your behalf. And after working with Oakland County and administration, they said a better application has not just lead service lines. We were gonna put all 200,000 lead service lines, which is 300 times, that's 600, that's a lot of money, right? That's more than 200,000. So we played the game, grants, they wanted more than just lead service lines. Those numbers were just guesses at that point. You approved the grant subject to this level of detail coming back before you and making sure you're comfortable with exactly where the money was being spent of the 200, because we were still working on the 292 as the last time we talked about this, when you passed the resolution.
So now there's only 36 homes.
Yep.
Can I ask a question? Of the 36 homes, and you said most of them are in the northeast corner, or no?
Yeah. 20, some of them have to be up in that subdivision.
What happens if someone who lives up there and you find them?
So, just because you have a lead service line does not mean you have a lead problem, okay? There's two elements of this, right? One is lead service lines, and the second is water chemistry, okay? This is what happened in Flint. It was not singularly just lead service lines that caused the problem. It was lead service lines and water chemistry. Detroit does not have the same water chemistry problem. However, it is Eagle, it is EPA, and it is everybody. His mission is to get rid of them. So if we find that subdivision has them or not, then we will apply for grants and other things to then replace them, like a lot of these communities are. They have focused on overburdened or disadvantaged communities, have gotten a lot of funding for this work already, but that doesn't mean that there's not going to be money in the future. If I was gambling, I would say that it's not likely that there's lead service lines up there, but there's a chance, right? There's always a chance because it was built privately, we think. We couldn't find any. Bloomfield Township, for example, had 4, 5, 6 subdivisions that had their own private well system, like a subdivision well system, that got aggregated into the regional system over time. And this just happened, the records reflect that they were tied into the city system. There's new water main on the street, but that doesn't mean the lines were the same, so we gotta go verify that. If we find them, we deal with them. The answer is we will figure out a way to make that work. Likely they will be replaced all the way to the house.
So are we looking at just individual homes? Because the northeast corner, a big corner of that is Hugo.
So this is just a subdivision? No, the corner of that is Oakland Hunt. No, let me go back to the list.
Northeast city of isn't the northeast?
Northeast.
Kingsley
You're thinking
Trail.
northwest. So this is Kingsley Trail, Hunt Club, Randall Way.
Oh, Whitehall, so.
Whitehall subdivision. Yep.
Whitehall?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep.
Right. So we're gonna do the 36 homes, but then we came up with this idea of looking at the sanitary sewer, right? And spending some of the funding on that. I'm gonna change it. When we realized we didn't need to spend all, we were at 72 plus 48 to get the lead service lines done, and knowing that we had 50% of projects, and we know that we have sewer issues that have to be resolved at some point, is our recommendation that you take 50% of the $56,000 and put it into, get 50% of what you are going to do paid for. So we went up and figured out how to get, and talking with Oakland County, how to maximize a 50-50 match for work you are going. So we can use the allocated government critical infrastructure grant that we're getting. We can allocate it not just to lead service lines, but we can allocate it to sanitary sewer.
Everything on that list is basically 50-50 match now to the grant. You're only paying 50% of all those numbers.
But when we do this sewer, like you said, we have to do, it could create a 1.2 million, which is what the commission was concerned with when we talked about you the first time about what are we opening up.
Right. So you have documented infrastructure, your sanitary sewer with defects in them that rate on the scale of 4s and 5s, you are, I'm trying not to be dramatic, you're obligated to fix these at this point. If the sewer were to fail tomorrow, or reasonably timed, and people were to back up, you're on the hook. This is your sewer system, and there's problems identified that you have to fix them. That's why we budgeted $800,000, not having any. We've done a lot more work since then to get this number refined, and we just said there's no way we can do this in 1 year. So, yeah. So for no additional rate impact to your ratepayers, you can afford this project, and then you could reduce rates at some point.
Over a 3-year term.
Or 2 year. You have 800 in now, and if you don't give the 800 back, you're gonna have 1.6, and this is only 1.2.
So we have, and this is all coming out of the water and sewer,
Yes,
right?
all.
That we just agreed to raise the rates to build up the fund.
I don't think we raised rates to build a fund. I think
Not raised them, we continued them at the same amount, right?
Yep.
Is that correct?
We've done minor adjustments on pass-through. The city's not raised your rate portion, but you've done pass-through rate increases. And remember last year I said, it's about the last year that you're gonna be able to absorb rate increases you've kept your rates for the last like 4 very, very minimal increases, if any, over the last few years. I think I reported when we did the rates last year, this is probably the last year you're gonna be able to fully absorb rate increases. But in the budget with the current rate, you have allocated $800,000 of capital to the sewer repair, to the sewer work
For this year?
for this year. And assuming you don't give that back next year, the rate structure will support $800,000 worth of these improvements, minus the pass-throughs. So it's funded. I'm trying to say is this is funded
Without any rate increases?
without any new rate increases. So all the
What
200.
happens, when you continue when Oakland County continues to do the 20% evaluation of our sewers every year, what happens?
You're never going to be done with this. Okay, this is like roads. This is like everything else. The county goes out and does inspections. Are continuously looking at it. As you find them, you fix them.
So roads, sometimes you rate a road if you use this scale,
Yeah.
you rate a road as a 3, but
4 years later, it's a 5. Then you got to go fix it.
5.
Yep.
So sewers are the same thing.
Right. But due to the work you did, 2004 to whenever, you start adding this work on. It's not like you're not like a 36 square mile community, right? With 100 more miles of pipe.
Right.
As you replace these or line these, that's why I don't love spot liners, because if I'm just going to be in this year, 3 years later, might as well it's a new pipe in a pipe that gives us a 15, 20 year. So those are the kind of things I think are value added in all of this. But the answer is that sooner or later you're going to keep obligated to do inspections, and you're going to find less and less and less. Just so happens we haven't done a whole lot of inspections since the SAW program, which was 2013, 2015. We paid for it with the SAW program, and then Oakland County's done a good job keeping up with it. COVID, other things happened, and then next thing you know, we're just kind of at this crunch. But there will always be a need to spend capital on repairing your sanitary and water main system. It's just unfortunately what it is. But you've done a really good job of keeping your rates stable and still generating enough revenue to take care of this and keeping your rates in line. So that's going to continue, and this will be just roll right into that. So, summarize, we are asking for approval for the first $200,000, which is 50-50 match city. Everything is in the budget, and for the 4 tasks identified on this sheet here. Might be the easiest draft motion.
Do you have a motion?
Nobody else has any questions?
No. I move to approve the revised request to the commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Hey Jamie, from like a PACER rating standpoint comparison, is there any way to provide some analysis of this is the biggest asset in the city is our infrastructure underground. That's the biggest asset.
Yes.
Is there any way to quantify that, like from a sewer repair standpoint, where you can You know what I'm
So,
getting at,
yeah,
right?
so, it's just so, it's reversed, okay? So Pacers are, like, 0 would be like
Right, but you know what I'm getting at.
war zone,
Yeah.
yeah. And so the answer is sewer's just opposite, but you take 5s and you make them 0s and 1s, you take 4s, you make them 2s and 3s. I mean, it's the same kind of analysis, right? A 5 is like a problem, a 1 is, hey, keep your eye on it, just like a road would be a 10, a 9, and 8. Just keep your eye on it, light
But
maintenance.
could we have a vision of getting it somewhere and then bring that vision to the commission from budgeting purposes and say that if we spent X amount of
Look-
dollars, we can put ourselves in a certain position? Because then what could happen is then we wouldn't need to spend as much. We can get into a more of a maintenance program.
Let me look into that. Let me see how we can do that. Water main is not as
Well,
easy
we
to
kinda
do
did
because
that-
we can't inspect that.
We kinda did that
internally.
water main already though.
Right. We have. Yeah. You
Because
still have a lot of old water
that was
main,
a
but it's still
different
good
reason.
water main in the ground.
Different reasons we needed more water.
Right. I will look into figure out a way to
Yeah.
kind of show that in
it'd
a
be
graphic.
interesting, I think.
Yep. I will do that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, commission will consider adoption of a zoning ordinance amendment to chapter 24 related to the landscape open space definition language. Dirk?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This was considered by the Planning Commission earlier today, and they recommended approval of it. Specifically, what this ordinance does is it provides for the elimination of any future properties being zoned or rezoned to P1 parking district. The P1 parking district was created back in roughly in 1983. The idea behind it was to provide large areas of parking for office buildings. The primary location of P1 parking zoning district in the city right now would be the areas behind the Kingsley, Dietrich Furs, all those, the Donna Mann building, the Jonah building, all those buildings along Woodward Avenue in the area of Long Lake Road. We haven't zoned any new properties to P1 since, it's been about 30 years. So there's really no reason to think about or contemplate rezoning any future properties to P1. One of the problems with the P1 zoning district, in fact, the biggest problem with the P1 zoning district, is it doesn't have as restrictive setback requirements for parking areas. So, for instance, if you have a property that's zoned to O1 and they want to put parking in that area, the parking has to meet the O1 requirements for parking and landscaping and all the rest. The same requirements don't exist for the P1 zoning district. So the chairman of the planning commission pointed that out to me and suggested that perhaps we think about eliminating the P1 zoning district for future properties. Obviously, those properties in the city that are currently zoned P1, we don't want to eliminate the zoning for those properties because it would make them non-conforming. So those properties would still remain the same. It's just no future or additional properties would be zoned to the P1 zoning district. It's nothing but a positive for the city. I highly recommend it. We've spoken to the staff, and the staff all agrees. And I think it was unanimously approved, recommended for approval tonight by a 9-0 vote of the Planning Commission. Any questions I can try to answer?
I'll make a motion, if there's no questions. I'll make a motion to approve the zoning ordinance amendment P1 parking district as noted in the attorney's amendment. Do I have to?
That's fine.
I can just say it there. I don't have to go into the, okay.
Perfect.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. I think I jumped ahead on the now you're gonna,
Now I'll do the landscape.
now you're gonna talk about landscape,
Yes,
open space.
this is another text amendment to the zoning ordinance. This was also recommended for approval by a 9-0 vote with a minor change, and it's truly minor. I'll get to the change in a second. But basically, the idea behind this text amendment to the zoning ordinance is that it corrects a inconsistency that currently pertains to the landscape open space requirements. Our landscape open space requirements are contained in, I believe, 24-235 of the zoning ordinance. And with respect to parking areas in residential districts, it provides that all those parking areas, other than the planted areas, you know, where there's actually plants planted, are not to be treated as landscape open space. The definition of landscape open space, which is what this amends, section 24-3, only talks about impervious surfaces for parking areas. And so that's inconsistent with the other language for primarily applying to residential properties. So what we have done is we've added the word or pervious to make both of the parking areas consistent. The parking area description in 24-235 and then the definition here. So that the long and the short of it is, just summing it all up, is that all parking areas will be treated, all parking areas will not be treated as landscape open space. And that's, so it really is just correcting a defect or an inconsistency in the ordinance. There was one proposed amendment by the Planning Commission. Right now, you'll see that it says impervious and then the added language or pervious. They wanted to just put the pervious first, so it'll say pervious or impervious, so that it matches the sentence immediately preceding it. So it's just a stylistic change. It doesn't really change the impact of it.
So they want impervious first?
Yeah, if you look at the sentence before.
Previous first.
Right,
Just to
the
make it
sentence before
consistent with the previous
sentence.
clause.
Previous line, right.
Mhm.
Previous line says whether pervious or impervious, and this says or for impervious or pervious. So they just want to put the pervious before impervious there too, so that the two lines are consistent.
Thanks, Dirk.
Thank you.
I move we approve adoption of the amendment to chapter 24 of the zoning ordinances as presented to us today. It helps to further clarify section 24-3's definition of landscaped open space.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries. Okay, commission will consider adoption of the 2024 goals.
Mayor, every year we ask the commission for any goals that they may want the administration to complete, and we are offering some suggestions of what we see might be needed or what could be helpful. And we have our own goals within the administration, a lot of goals that we deal with all the time to improve our services, but those aren't always necessarily connected to what the commission's vision may be. So these are some things that we recommend, and if you have any others, we're happy to add those.
Can we add, I saw in the chief's report about working with MDOT to get the pedestrian crossing at Long Lake and Woodward.
I'm working on that. Actually, that's going to be part of my manager's comments, but so we had some movement from I forget which senator. Moss is going to help us out with funding that. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So there's an actual grant in process that MDOT has applied for, but also we've got some movement funding the safer crosswalk. We don't know exactly what that is, but so that's we'll add to the goal when we complete it. It'd be good, but we are working on it.
The only thing I would mention on that is I was adding it to Cole just because, that's our city center, if you want to call it a city for us. That is the big one, and I'd like it to be in keeping. We have beautiful gardens there now, and everything, and I suppose they're going to have to tear some of those up. So I'd hate to have them just tear them up and put a bunch of pavers down. That's, I'd like to kind of keep that really, really nice looking.
Well, what I was thinking is there should be a safe crosswalk there, and maybe just in one spot, just on south of Long Lake, and find a small area that we can remove some of the landscaping there, make so people can see, but not tear out a bunch of landscaping, as you say.
Yeah.
And probably just cement, I would think. I don't know. It might just be easier so we don't have to maintain it. Just a pathway of cement. And then the rest of it is, I really think that they need to, to have the push button to
push buttons.
Yeah, are they gonna wanna have the lights that go all the way across? Excuse me.
Yeah, I don't know if the lights would change any, I think it would just be
The push button.
just the push button, and so that any pedestrian can see when it's safe to walk. You know, they have that silhouette of a person that turns white and.
But isn't Smart going to put a sidewalk from the bus stop to Long Lake on the northbound side, and from Long Lake to
Yes.
the bus stop on the southbound side?
I mean, that's what they promised us.
In the, right,
Right.
like in front of the gas station,
Yes,
yeah, and in front of the building across the street.
yes.
And then MDOT's gonna put the crosswalk in the center.
We're hoping to get it paid for, and we just, got some information from Senator
And
Moss.
the push buttons.
And the push buttons, yeah. But I don't know how much more you can do. I mean, from a beautification standpoint, I don't know if there's much more you can do than that. Just a sidewalk through the median and the appropriate lights.
But could the county ask us to put in, have you ever seen those lights where they light up a whole sidewalk? So if someone pushes the button, it's a flashing of the whole crosswalk, just because it's such a major road.
They didn't ask us to put in anything. We asked them to do.
I'm not sure if they would do that to Woodward. I mean, I can find out.
Right.
That would be part of it.
Yeah, they might have a problem with stopping traffic outside of the normal scheduled light.
No, I mean, if anyone, it would only be when it's, okay to go and everyone's stopped, but people come down Woodward so fast.
Yeah, they're so concerned about putting any infrastructure in the road, which was a big concern. But if you can directional bore any, but I think there's so many power lines there that it shouldn't be a problem getting the power from the button from one side to the other. I mean, other than that, they can directional bore, I would imagine, underneath Woodward to do that. But I don't know, from a safety standpoint, that would be nice if we at least got that.
Chief Gormley, do many people run that stoplight coming south on Woodward?
The southmost is where we have problems sometimes, and it's usually overweight trucks that are unable to stop, not necessarily running it. And with any lights, that's what our major intersection, so the most traffic in Bloomfield crosses every day at that intersection. So you would expect increased infractions there, just with the percentage of traffic that daily goes through.
Are people using that now? The bus stop? Has anybody seen?
I don't see a lot of people there. I have seen maybe 3 or 4 people there since they've been in, but I do not see a high usage at the bus stop.
And we don't see people crossing in the middle of, where are they crossing? If they cross at all? You don't see that?
I have not seen people cross. I know that there's an employee at the Kingsley that does use the bus stop, and he must cross at some point.
Well, yeah, you'd have to, wouldn't it? Could he get dropped off
He
and?
comes and goes, so I'm not sure where he crosses. I have not seen him cross.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Telegraph and 15 Mile, is there a crosswalk there?
I think so.
I think so.
I think there is. Yeah, I would expect there. There is definitely one at Long Lake in Telegraph, and there's one at Orchard Lake in Telegraph. And just north of Orchard Lake, they have some of the lights, like Commissioner Fisher was talking about in the roadway.
Right. I'm not here to second guess the decision. It's such a busy thoroughfare. The thought of people walking across. I mean, it's like we're going to go to all this trouble, and I'm just wondering why.
We didn't have any choice.
All legs run at crosswalks designated.
Why would we put a crosswalk at a lot?
I understand why we would. I just wonder who.
We were required to have the bus stop there, and
Got it.
so
Okay.
they have.
It's just the bus stop.
There's one on either side, so the people that come on one side and get off the bus, presumably they have to get to the other side to get home, to get on the bus. So that's why they put the bus stops there and weren't going to give us any crosswalks or any safety precautions, and we really we prevailed upon them to give us something, and they're finally coming. I mean, it's been several months now since, but we need the crosswalk for these people who are getting on and off the buses.
My concern is that there's a median in between, northbound and southbound Woodward. So when you cross, are you gonna make it? To the side?
You gotta be a sprinter.
You gotta be a
No.
sprinter. And so,
Yeah.
if it's appropriately installed and timed,
Yeah, it has to.
you could, well, and you might have to stop in the median, but there's no walkway there, or there's all the bushes and everything else. I mean, there's,
Well, that's what I'm wondering, is MDOT gonna, approve of having a longer light there, stopping traffic for a longer period of time?
No, they told us when we met with them that the person would have to stop in the middle, that there was no
Okay.
way that a person could make
Really?
it all the way across on one light.
Okay.
That, they made a point of saying that when we met with them last summer.
they did, but at least that person can see that it's safe to, is it really safe? I don't, it's not
Is there a
100%
place
safe.
for them to stand there?
Well, then they'd have to
Just
put a
in the
walkway in
median.
there, and removes any vegetation that would inhibit them from seeing.
I mean, we didn't have any choice.
Right.
Right.
We didn't want it, they,
Where else did you say they're putting a sidewalk?
from the, SMART agreed to put a sidewalk from the bus stop, which the one on the northbound side is just a little bit north of the gas station, I think.
Yeah.
So from the gas station to Long Lake. And then on the other side of the street, SMART agreed to put a sidewalk from the corner of Long Lake to the bus stop, which the bus stop is very near the corner. So that won't be very much of a sidewalk. There'll be a longer sidewalk in front of the gas station. But they're gonna do that at their cost. Which they agreed to that at the beginning.
They did.
Well, yeah, I just get concerned about sort of inviting people to cross there if it hasn't been figured out
Yep.
how it's gonna be safe. And so we invite them to cross, and then, they get stranded in the middle or whatever, and,
Yeah.
this is a
Well,
tough one to,
But that's what they have up and down Woodward, like in Birmingham, where it's also pretty busy. They have those crosswalks there
Yeah.
through the median and with the signs and the push buttons.
this is the only way.
They have it down in Royal Oak and Ferndale and.
But they go all the way across, don't they, in Birmingham, on Maple? Don't they make it all the way across?
You can't, no, I think that one by the Speedway station there, I think you have to stop there.
Oh, right, yeah, I was thinking more of
I don't think you
the
can make
Maple
it all the
one.
way on that one, can you? I think, but the one at Maple and Woodward, I think you can, yes.
The bus stops on Telegraph are really treacherous looking. The sidewalks that run up and down Telegraph, or some places there isn't even any grass in between the sidewalk and Telegraph. They're that
Yikes.
close. Yeah, and the bus stops are right in the middle of Telegraph where there isn't even anything around. I don't know what the purpose of it is.
Okay, well, do we have any other thoughts about goals? Do you have a motion to approve or adopt the 2024 goals?
I'd like to move that we approve the 2024 goals for the administration. City.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
So we need to go into a public hearing for the next topic? Is that a matter of just stating that?
All you have to do is open the public hearing, you have to
Okay.
say.
Opening the public hearing. We need to, this is for the 2024 CDBG funds, and adopt a resolution for Meals on Wheels through Bloomfield Township Senior Services. And Amy, I think you're on for this.
Yes, thank you. So, the commission knows every year, this month, we talk about CDBG. CDBG is a federal program where the city gets funds allocated, there's no cost to the city, and there are several programs we can choose from. The two that work best for our community and for the funds that we receive are the Meals on Wheels program, which is a program that seniors in the city of Bloomfield Hills can get meals through Bloomfield Township Senior Services. That is one program. The other option is to have our funds go through Haven of Oakland County. Every year the commission has decided that they want to evaluate which program works for that year. The last year we dedicated our funds to Haven of Oakland County. The year before that, it was for Meals on Wheels, so we've consistently altered between one program and the other. We were spending down previous year's funds for Meals on Wheels with Bloomfield Township, and as of this summer, those services were required to stop because we had spent all of the Meals on Wheels funds that we were allocated. So we did have some citizens that were interested in continuing those meal services, and we didn't have the funds to provide that. So Bloomfield Township Senior Services had contacted the residents, explained to them that they could go on a pay-as-you-go program until the city decided if we were going to go through the Meals on Wheels program again for future program years. So as of the last communication I had with Bloomfield Township Senior Services, there were approximately 5 to 7 residents who were regularly interested in getting Meals on Wheels delivery. Again, there's no cost to the city. If the resident wanted to pay for it out of their own funds, it would be about $16 per meal. They can get 1 hot meal a day for Monday through Friday. There's no qualifying, you just have to be of a certain age and a city resident. So there's no other financial qualification that they're required to provide. So my recommendation this year, because last year we went to Oakland County Haven, and because there is an interest in the city for residents who would like to receive this service, is to have our CDBG funds be dedicated to Bloomfield Township Senior Services, Meals on Wheels.
And that way those 5 or 7 residents wouldn't have to pay for it, correct?
They would not have to pay for it. I will tell you, they opted not to. So there was no one that chose to pay directly for the period of time that we were unable to fund. They just said, let us know if this program ever starts up again and we would be interested. So the Bloomfield Township Senior Services they've made a commitment that they are going to manage all of this program funds to make sure that the city doesn't incur any expense, and they're going to keep really close track so that they can continue to provide the good service that they do for the residents.
So we'll let these residents know if this gets approved tonight, will we reach out to them and let them know?
We will reach out to the people that have received it before, as well as include it in a future newsletter, so maybe there's other people that didn't know about the service that may want to take advantage of it.
But did you say that the last time we did it, the $6,000 ran out in the middle of the year? Well,
Yes.
Won't that happen again?
It will happen again if the same number of people are interested in getting the same number of meals. So it's on a need or an interest basis.
Did it happen like at the end of the year, or?
So we went for a number of years where we were not running out of our Meals on Wheels funding, which is why I recommended the funds to go to Haven, because we were having difficulty spending that annual amount in Meals on Wheels. There wasn't a lot of interest in people using it. And then all of a sudden, this may be word of mouth, someone said, hey, this is a service I get, maybe they mentioned it to their neighbor, and we were getting more interest. So there's a program that Bloomfield Township has that they offer, not hot meals, but also meals to go. So they have provided an option for a varied program this time, which it won't be the $16 per resident. So there's an opportunity for like a hybrid program. So potentially it's not everyone getting a hot meal 5 days a week, 3 meals a day.
Oh, 3 meals a day?
So that's the 1 meal a day. I'm sorry, 1 meal a
that's
day,
what I thought,
5 days a week. Mm-hmm.
And that's $16 for 1 meal. That seems kind of high, doesn't it?
That's if they pay out of pocket. There are some administrative costs that Bloomfield Township Senior Services has. Obviously, the delivery is included in that, and those other things. From what I've heard, I have one resident that works elections for us. He gets the meal delivery service. He's by himself. He's been by himself for many years. And he says it's delicious. He enjoys seeing someone come. It's really why he works elections too. He's a really sharp guy, but it's his way to get out and get involved in the community for elections. And having the meal delivery service is another way for him to have contact in probably an otherwise quiet day that he leads.
Okay, thank you. So what do we think? Meals on Wheels?
You bet. That'd be
All
great.
right.
As long as it's benefiting our residents.
So you just have to make sure nobody has any public comment, and then you can close the public.
Yeah.
Public. What say you? No comment.
Close it.
Okay, I'm closing the public hearing.
And there's actually a resolution that you can adopt.
Do you need a motion for that?
Be a motion to adopt the resolution,
Okay.
correct?
Do I have to read the resolution? Huh?
No,
Just say,
just motion to adopt the resolution.
okay, I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution for the CDBG, 2024 grant funds to go to the Meals on Wheels.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Going on to the commission will consider the mayor's annual appointments. Do we have any questions or comments about the appointments for this for the upcoming terms for planning commission and zoning board of appeals? We have one new person, Larry Neal. His application I think is in the packet here. Maybe it's not.
Copy down the back of
It's on the back.
It's on the back.
Oh,
Oh.
right, yeah. I thought I saw it.
And Brad, have you agreed to be on the Preservation Bloomfield Board?
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, I have agreed to do that. I have to appoint myself to that board. So, yeah, that's part of this as well.
Did Annette want to move to zoning?
She, as far as I know, she expressed an interest in doing that because she had scheduling conflicts with planning commission.
Oh, oh,
But zoning, ZBA worked for her, so originally we thought Larry Neal would be appointed to ZBA, but since we had that opening on planning commission, decided to appoint him there and talked to him about it. He was on board with doing that, didn't have any problem.
so he has no commitment problem?
I asked him about that and made sure that he would be able to make that particular meeting, and he said he would be okay with that.
Okay, and does he, because you're right, we don't always, but normally as a rule, we do zoning and then we do planning just so that we get our feet wet, you know, with how everything works, and, because most things going through zoning come through planning first. Does he have any, background on building and
He
plans?
does. He was the project manager essentially for the Macomb Library, the brand new library that was built in Macomb County. So he's got a lot of construction experience dealing with, building large libraries. So this is not necessarily new ground for him.
Okay, and that's a 1-year term?
He would be filling
Annette's,
term.
right?
Yes, and then he would be up for reconsideration when the term is expired.
Okay. Okay, and then you, because you're on the board, or?
I'm not on the board officially yet, but I was asked to participate on the Preservation Bloomfield board, and I agreed to do that, but I need to appoint myself to it. So there's an official. Typically, in the past, this position has been appointed by the commission, and it just so happens that I am the mayor in this cycle.
So you're appointing yourself to
Yes.
it? We've had an appointment to the board, to the Preservation Board?
Yes.
We have?
Yes.
Wow, okay. That's good to know. Well, you're appointing yourself. That's good to know.
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay. And then we have one alternate for the zoning board, Amy?
That position's been vacant for a while. There are 2 alternate positions on zoning board. One has been filled for a couple of years. That position has been open for a while.
Okay. Okay.
Is that something that we should fill, or?
The mayor and I talked about it, and we had said if it is a mayor's appointment, so if there's someone that is in the community that Mayor Baxter would like to recommend, that position is open.
Or I'm taking suggestions as well, so
Okay,
if you have thoughts, we can.
thank you.
Okay.
I don't have any other questions. I'll make a motion to approve the boards and commissions appointments for the 2024 as stated here for their actual appointments in terms.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Commission will consider adoption of a resolution for the annual MDOT permit to work in the state trunk line, which is Woodward Avenue.
This is really a housekeeping issue. We maintain Woodward nicely for MDOT, for the state of Michigan, but they want a permit, annual permits for any work that we do, including maintenance. So we plant trees, we cut it, we put flowers, and
We have to submit a permit
Every-
every time we beautify?
every year. So it's an annual
It's
permit.
online though, right? You apply for it online?
No,
No?
we apply for it here. They
So it
send us
incurs-
information.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'll make it easy. How about I move to approve?
You just did.
Yep, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Commission will consider adoption of the plan for the early voting site for the February 27th, 2024 election.
Thank you, Mayor. So for those commissioners that may recall before the November election, they discussed the early voting plan. The city of Bloomfield Hills, I'm recommending that we do not enter into an agreement with Oakland County for early voting sites. So we will be operating our own early voting for all state and federal elections here locally for the city of Bloomfield Hills. So for 9 days leading up before every state and federal election, at City Hall we will conduct an early voting precinct, and registered voters will be able to come in and cast their ballot in person here at City Hall for those 9 days leading up to election day. Voters still also have the option to vote via absentee ballot or to vote in their regular precinct on election day. So as part of the early voting legislation, the city commission, as the election commission, is required to adopt an early voting plan, and that was what I have attached to my memo.
And this just simply allows us to oversee and remain control of all the votes for the city residents, correct?
So if we entered into the agreement with Oakland County to provide early voting, for the county to provide early voting services, our registered voters would likely have to travel to Bloomfield Township or Birmingham to vote early. They would still be able to get an absentee ballot or vote in their precinct on election day. But if a voter wanted to actually put their ballot in a tabulator before election day, they would have to travel outside the city of Bloomfield Hills, which is an option that was successful for the county before the November election. They were successful in conducting the early voting sites. But typically, we have the means to do it here. Our city residents are used to coming to City Hall to get an absentee ballot. We have the space, and we can absolutely manage an early voting site for 9 days before the election.
So Dirk, under section 168.10, it says you have to provide actual notice to the residents of the early voting, and our plan here is by direct mail or other method, including the city e-newsletter and website. Are the city's e-newsletter and website effective notice?
No, I think you've got to send it by mail plus other things.
Correct.
So the other things are in addition to the mailing.
So should it say by direct mail and other method, or because it says or other
It
method?
should say and.
So registered voters in the city before the February 27th election will receive 3 pieces of mail. One will be an early voting message about where you can vote early in the city of Bloomfield Hills. One will be to sign up for a permanent absentee list, so you will not have to register. You will not have to apply for an absentee ballot before every election. You'll get a ballot automatically mailed to you if you choose to be on that list. And the third will be a notification for those people who are already on the list on the voting plan going forward. So there's going to be a lot of election mail coming out here in the next month.
Or should it be and or
Yeah.
and or and?
And you have to mail it. That I know.
You have to.
But you have to mail it. Other things are in addition to that.
So your other duty as election commission will be to appoint the election inspectors. That will be on the January agenda. You will see there'll be more election inspectors because I'll have to staff those precinct for those 9 days before. So this needs an adoption of motion, as well as the January agenda item will be your other duty as the election commission.
Okay. Any other questions, or you have a motion?
I
Got a
move,
lot of mailings to make.
yeah, I move that we adopt the 2024 early voting plan as outlined by Amy Burton.
I'll second it.
With the revision of.
With the
order.
revision of and instead of or on the election law, section 168-6628. Correct? Or is there another one?
Do you have a second?
All in favor? Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Commission will hear city manager comments. I think we got into that a bit.
Yeah, I don't really have any comments other than I hope everybody has a happy holiday.
Same to you.
It's the New Year, I don't.
Christmas.
I'll continue to report on my weekly report, whatever the flavor of the week is.
And any other business? All right, it's been a long meeting.
That's fun.
Meeting adjourned.